So, Race Hustler Rhetoric explains, coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense Logic Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So as you know, I have a series of videos that I call Race Hustler Rhetoric. Now, I initially did a video explaining what Race Hustler Rhetoric is, way back when I actually started making videos. And now I have to do the update because initially I had two different categories, but I've had to add another category for reasons, because in other words, certain videos just wouldn't fit in either category, and it just made sense. Anyway, so Race Hustler Rhetoric is just nothing but a series of examples that a lot of these blacks use to try to show that America is a racist country, is a racist nation. Now, the reason why I call it Race Hustler Rhetoric is because race hustlers come up with these excuses, these examples, and then it just starts to get spoken to the point that it's just so rhetorical. And the thing, what I find really funny about this Race Hustler Rhetoric is that you have so many black people who arm themselves with the examples, but they don't arm themselves with the ability to defend the example. But that's because they can't, because it's just, you can't defend the indefensible. It's kind of like the gender pay gap, A lot of these feminists arm themselves with the example, they'll cry about the pay gap, but they're unable to defend it once it's debunked with the facts. Anyway, like I said, there are three different categories when it comes down to Race Hustler Rhetoric. Now, the first category, the first example, is what I call end result thinking. Now, end result thinking is a process of finding any end result that's unfavorable to black people, any category in America in which black people are lagging behind or not equal to or on par with white people on something. They're going to look at the end result of it and then assume that it's happening because of racism. They're not going to do any research or do any investigation to why it's actually happening. They'll just see the end result and that they don't like, that's unfavorable to black people, and they'll cry racism. Perfect example of end result thinking would be, black folks get more time for the same crime. Now, they'll see this and then they'll shout it from every mountaintop, and then other black people hear it, and then they'll pile on it. They'll just shout it and keep saying it to the point it just become rhetorical, even though there's various reasons why black people get more time for the same crime. None of it has anything to do with racism. Most notably, number one, because blacks commit crime at a higher rate. And, the average black person, on average, when standing before a judge, usually stand before a judge with a longer criminal arrest record, which is something that they take into consideration. If you got a person A and person B, both of them black, one person A, has never been in trouble with the law before. Person B has consistently been in trouble with the law for the same charge that he's in, that they're standing before the judge currently. Obviously, the judge is going to deal more harshly with person B because they're not learning their lesson, whereas the person A is much more likely to get probation. But if you have a long criminal arrest record, obviously they're going to deal with that person more harshly, because of which they're not learning their lesson. And that's pretty much end result thinking in a nutshell. And I guarantee you, this is more likely probably the majority of the Race Hustler Rhetoric is going to be end result thinking. Now, the second category is historical crime. Now, historical crime is pretty much similar to end result thinking. The difference is it's coming from an historical context. They'll give you some historical event that happened in the past that nobody is disagreeing with. It happened, but it'll be completely, totally irrelevant to today. For instance, perfect example would be the bombing of Black Wall Street or slavery, right? There was slavery in America. Nobody disagreed with that. We all agree with the bombing of Black Wall Street. It happened. It happened 101 years ago in Tulsa, Oklahoma. However, neither one of these incidents are relevant to today. They're not stopping black people in any way, shape, or form today. You know, there's no black person in Tulsa, Oklahoma can say that they're being held back because of the bombing of Black Wall Street. And the only real relevance that slavery has had in America is the fact that you have a lot of black people in this country. Other than that, slavery has absolutely no relevance to today, yet they'll act as if it does. It's completely irrelevant, but they hype it up and cry and complain about it as if it is. And that's pretty much historical crime in a nutshell. Now, the third category, and the one just recently added, is what I call fictitious notion. In other words, they believe something that doesn't exist. This is common, it's very common amongst black people. And a perfect example of that would be the most recent example of Race Hustler Rhetoric, my previous video, and that is police officers are genociding black people. They believe that this to be the case, but there's no evidence to back it up. It's a false notion, it's a false narrative. And as I say in that video, not only is there no evidence to prove that this is happening, but the evidence actually shows that it is not happening, but people still believe it. Again, it's a false notion. And since basically this is Race Hustler Rhetoric in a nutshell, and they use this Race Hustler Rhetoric as evidence to try to show that there's all this racism, but it doesn't exist. And every time they come up with this rhetorical nonsense, it's easily debunking. All it takes is just a little research, and you prove what they're saying to be wrong. But they keep spouting and spewing it, and as I said, they can't defend it because you can't defend the indefensible. So that's why I make these videos, though. The reason why I make these videos, these episodes of Race Hustler Rhetoric, so that you would know them, and if you ever run into a black person using Race Hustler Rhetoric as evidence of racism, that the black man is being held back in America, you'll know how to debunk it because you would have heard it already. It's not like you're not going to be caught off guard. And there's very little out there that I hadn't heard. I pretty much heard it all. And if they do come up with something new, which they do time to time, come up with a new example of Race Hustler Rhetoric, it just takes a little simple thought, and you pretty much debunk that nonsense, or just a little bit of research, and it comes back what they're saying is utter nonsense. Anyway, y'all, that's Race Hustler Rhetoric in a nutshell. If you've heard me talk about videos of Race Hustler Rhetoric and you want to, what is it? That's pretty much it is. It's just not all it is. It's just a series of rhetorical examples that black people try to use to show that America is a racist country. And that's pretty much what it is. So, like I said, as I see Race Hustler Rhetoric, I'll make videos debunking it. And if I see new examples, I'll make videos debunking that. And if I have to come up with new categories, I'll create new categories to try to put those examples in the proper category that it should go in. But ultimately, I never heard one single example of Race Hustler Rhetoric that was relevant. It's all a bunch of nonsense and victimhood. Anyway, y'all, just thought I'll do a video updating Race Hustler Rhetoric and bringing up the 3 different categories now so that you may have understanding. But anyway, y'all, as always, until next time.